How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to the Enclave, South Africa's premier firearms education channel. Today, we are going to be doing Module 4, Fundamentals of Shooting. Okay, and here we are. So, as I said in the intro, we are back with Module 4, Fundamentals of Shooting. It is always a very long episode because it is always a very long section. So perhaps grab a drink and relax because, yeah, this is going to be a long one. So let's get into it. First off, we start with stance. Now, you always want to know the 7 fundamentals of shooting. I keep wanting to put this book down, but I need to keep turning the pages to make sure I'm working in an order that you guys can follow. You always want to understand all fundamentals of shooting. So stance, grip, breathing, trigger squeeze, sight picture, sight alignment, and follow through. Those are the 7 fundamentals of shooting. You want to be able to list those. It is in almost every single test. So, introduction. Stance. The isosceles stance. So, with the isosceles stance, you basically have your body in a fully frontal position, like so, with your legs and feet about a shoulder width apart. At the end of the day, stand how you're comfortable. Find how your isosceles stance works for you or how your weaver stance works for you and train it. Get used to it. Get good with it. Because at the end of the day, yeah, when instinct kicks in, you're going to go to what you know. So train what you know. Train what you feel comfortable with. But yeah, about a shoulder length apart, and then we are going to lean into the firearm ever so slightly. You don't want to be falling forward, but you do want to have a little bit more lean in the lower back, just to keep a little bit more weight behind that firearm. It also helps with, I don't know what you want to call it, rubber gripping. Basically, you don't grip the handgun hard enough or firmly enough for it to cycle. And I'm actually a pro with that. I can rubber grip like the best of them, or rubber wrist. I don't know what you want to call it, but I feel like I'm gripping it. And with some firearms, I just don't. The advantages and disadvantages, obviously, with the isosceles stance, your bulletproof vest will be completely presented to the target. Whereas if you're in the weaver stance, the side of your vest, some of them do, most of them won't. The one you're going to get at a security company or in the police force is not going to have bulletproof protection down the sides. So you want to keep the plate, which is about yay big. You want to keep that plate fully presented to the target. That is the advantage of using the isosceles stance. The weaver stance. Basically, the easiest way to explain a weaver stance is if you go from the isosceles stance and you take one step back with your main gun foot. So if your main gun hand is your right hand, you will take one step back with your right foot. If your main gun hand is your left hand, you will take one step back with your left foot. The advantages of that is when you're behind cover, you present as little of yourself as possible. Now, something I recommend you practice is this over here. So you absolutely want to understand how to stand behind cover. We will get into that in more advanced training things down the line, but that might actually just be for the Patreon supporters. We'll see. Keep an eye out for that. There is a Patreon coming. Actually, the Patreon video might even be released before this one does. Who knows? Okay, kneeling position. You absolutely want to be proficient with kneeling, especially for these courses. When the SHTF situation comes and people are firing at you and you need to get out of your vehicle, you need to be able to get into a good stance behind hard cover on your vehicle. And for that, you're not going to be able to stand straight up unless you're in some SPV annihilator armored van where the bonnet stands 2 meters tall. Other than that vehicle, you're most likely going to either need a kneeling position or a squat or low squat position. So you're absolutely going to want to find a good squat position, something that feels comfortable, something that you can still move well, but you're stable. That is absolutely important. Prone position. The pros and cons of the prone position. So the prone position pros are that you present a much smaller target to the enemy. And depending on the weapon you're using, you can be much more accurate. The cons are that once you're laying on the ground, especially when you've got something like whatever, an AR platform rifle or something along those lines, unless you're fit and, ready to go, you might have a hard time getting up. You might have a hard time moving around afterwards. It's very difficult to transition from prone to other positions. So that is the one thing that you do want to keep in mind with the prone. Cover and concealment. Now, I'll be honest, most of the extra information here is not going to be in your test, but it is important to know. So, cover and concealment. The only part of this that will be in your test is the sentence here that says, the criminal's favorite form of concealment is darkness. So that will most likely be the answer to the question that you will be asked, is darkness. So cover and concealment. The difference between cover and concealment. Cover is anything that will protect you from a bullet. So things like your engine block, extremely thick walls, things like that. Those are considered cover because they will actually protect you from bullets. Concealment. What concealment is basically a hiding place. So we never expect concealment to act as cover. You never want to hide behind a car door and consider that cover because it's not. It's concealment. You might be able to conceal your drawer behind a door. So if someone is causing trouble in front of your car, you would then be able to open your door, sort of surrender, and using the cover of the door, take a second to draw your firearm and then attack. But as soon as possible, you need to move behind the vehicle so that the engine block is between you and the target so that you're in cover. And that is important. You need to understand the difference between cover and concealment. That will save your life. That is not in your test, but that will save your life, truly. So that is something you definitely need to know. What else do we need to go through here? Night shooting techniques. Once again, this isn't most likely going to be in your test, but you do still need to know. The biggest issue when shooting in low light or darkness is sight picture and target identification. Now, the sight picture, that can be overcome. The light from your torch, if your firearm has a torch, will often give enough radiant light for you to see your sights. And if not, you will actually be able to see a negative. So you'll be able to see when the 3 lines of your sights line up because there'll be all this light coming from in front of it, if you understand what I'm saying. So the sight picture, that will come right. That's not a huge issue. What is crucially important there is target identification. It is always, always important to know your target and what's beyond it. So, as you can see here, what we're going to move on to in the manual, we're actually going to skip all this because it's not important. This is just for you. Practice it, find which technique is good for you. I truly recommend using a weapon-mounted light. If the company gives you weapons and you can't mount a light on it, that is unfortunate. You will then need to learn one of those techniques. But I personally will always recommend a weapon-mounted light. It keeps your other hand free, and you always want to have two hands on the firearm as much as you possibly can. So next up, we have barricade shooting. Your instructor will go through this with you. I will potentially go through this at some point where we're actually outside or at a range with cover and concealment, moving. We'll do all these physical things. It's not going to be in your test. You don't need to worry about page 41 and page 40. Like you really don't. I apologize if I bumped the mic there. But yeah, that is pretty much it. And I suppose that's like the thing with this manual is that it spends 20 minutes on stance and actually doesn't go into the other 7 fundamentals of shooting. And I'll be honest with you, no offense to any police out there or any security forces, but if this book is all you've learned, you're highly undereducated for your job, because we didn't go through anything else. We didn't go through breathing. We didn't go through trigger squeeze. We didn't go through sight picture, sight alignment, or follow through. We literally went through stance. That sort of just hit me right now. I didn't even realize that until this very second. Went through all these tests, got the certificate. I actually, it's just hit me now that, that our police have to learn 6 times less than we do. That's quite shocking because most of that isn't in your tests. So, wow, I'm sorry, guys, that has shocked me. That is, just think about that. Your manual as a private citizen to only protect your life, you have to do more work, more studying. You have to understand more fundamentals of shooting, more laws, more all that stuff than a police officer or a security officer do. And they say they're not trying to keep hands or guns out of the hands of private citizens. And you look at stuff like this. This test was easy. My instructor didn't even manage to finish 2 cigarettes, I don't think, in the time I did this test. It didn't even take me 15 minutes to do 3 gun tests. It didn't even take me 15 minutes. It took me more than 3 hours, 2 hours, somewhere about there, to do the previous private competencies test. Anyways, oh, I'm shook. As always, I hope you enjoyed. If you feel like I missed anything or you have anything to add, please feel free to add in the comments below. And as always, if you've enjoyed, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It is the only way the channel grows. If you have more time, maybe check out another video here at the end. And as always, peace out.